Yo, what up, street talks? This is Eric from the Eric Street Photography blog. So I want to share with you some random ideas I had on lots of things. So first and foremost, this notion of narcissism. So I think I had a dream about it, or I thought about it when I was waking up. So generally, society says narcissism is a bad thing. And I'm kind of curious, why do we think that narcissism is a bad thing? And actually, what is the real story of narcissists? So let me kind of just outline what I think. So this morning I Googled in Wikipedia narcissist, and I actually read the actual original OG story of Narcissus, and I found it actually very interesting. So the basic gist is this: there was once a hunter, right? And then there's this, he was really handsome or good looking. And then, you know, there's this goddess or deity or woman named Echo who followed him around. And essentially, Narcissus, you know, he kind of ignored her, or kind of, you know, spurned her. And then, you know, Echo gets super sad, she keeps crying, and then she essentially withers away and only turns into an echo. And then kind of effectively to get back at her, to get back at Narcissus, you know, the gods feel kind of bad about it. So they kind of essentially intoxicate Narcissus. So he's dying of thirst, he goes to the water, and he's drinking some water, and then he sees himself in the reflection, falls in love with himself, and essentially he dies of heartbreak because he cannot, you know, get requited love from himself, and then he ends up eventually dying and turns into a flower or something like that. So that's why we call it the narcissist flower. So what is the moral of the story? People generally tend to think that the moral of the story is, you know, you fall in love with yourself, that's a bad thing, and you're gonna die. I think it's actually a lot more complex than this. So first and foremost, Narcissus is kind of he's kind of an innocent character in this story. Is that, you know, he's just kind of doing his thing, and, you know, he doesn't really care for Echo, and so he scorns her, but then he essentially gets punished by becoming intoxicated with himself and his own image. And so I think generally in modern society, we tend to think that selfishness is synonymous with evil or moral reprehensibility, and therefore narcissism is seen as a bad thing. And we're reminded of this story all the time to say that if you're narcissistic, you're gonna die or go to hell, effectively. But let us kind of think about this a little bit differently. So I think a more accurate way to think about this story is that essentially they made Narcissus go mad. It's not necessarily like, it's essentially he was fooled or deceived or tricked, because when you look in the water of your own reflection, essentially it mirrors everything that you do. And then so, like, you know, Narcissus reaches out for the water, and then, you know, it reaches back, and he goes into the water, tries to hug himself or kiss himself, and then nothing really kind of happens back. So it actually is a very interesting thing, because it's not necessarily because he's in love with himself that he dies. It's more of like, I don't know, maybe it's like kind of like the feeling of trying to love something or give something or to do something onto something else, and to not have a real reaction back. Maybe that's kind of the more complex morality of the story, is that generally in life, when we put forth love or we do something, we want some sort of feedback, or we want people to love us back. But actually, if we keep loving and keep doing something onto something and we get nothing back, this could be one of the most depressing things ever. And once again, it's not really a story about narcissism. It's more a story about kind of love, which I kind of find interesting. It's a story between Narcissus and Echo. How you doing? It's a story between Narcissus and Echo, and essentially Echo being super sad because she cannot get unrequited love. So it's more about unrequited love amongst two different individuals, not one guy being into himself and then, you know, getting killed, getting punished because narcissistic. Because I think a lot of people who don't really actually know the story tend to think, oh, Narcissus was a narcissistic person. He looked into the water and saw a reflection of himself. He was so into himself, he kept staring at himself till he died. And therefore, if you keep looking at yourself and you keep, you know, are into yourself and narcissistic, you're gonna go to die. You're gonna die. You're gonna go to hell, or you're gonna be morally reprehensible. So once again, I don't think that's the moral of the story. And actually, I think to be narcissistic could be one of the best things you can be, because, you know, the ancient Latin saying "temen nasce," or know yourself. You know, watch a scene in the Matrix. The old lady in the top left corner, she has it in the house. So many philosophers throughout history have said, know yourself or know thyself is the apex of wisdom. And I think it's pretty accurate. And even for myself, so like, besides like my friend Jeff Lamb and a handful of other people, I kind of have a difficult time entertaining my ideas or thoughts with others, and therefore, you know, it tends to annoy people, or, you know, people can't keep up or whatever. And so I actually find that thinking by myself, of myself, and with myself actually is one of the most productive things I could do, because, you know, I want to know what I think and why I think that way, just as a personal curiosity or game, and then maybe extrapolate my thoughts to encourage others to think for themselves. And so, you know, ultimately it's more like I want to seek ultimate wisdom for myself in order to understand myself, and then encourage others to also think for themselves. So some people might call that narcissistic, and, you know, and it's so funny too, because like everyone uses these different words, but I think everyone tends to mean something a little bit differently. But anyways, so people think about narcissism with themselves. Ooh, look at these nice little shadows. Nothing better than a nice morning walk. Ooh, look at that. That's beautiful. Almost looks like swimming fish. Ooh, that's a good one. Alright. This is actually kind of a... So, I think this is why more people should do street vlogging, because you could just kind of get better compositions. That's pretty cool. Alright, so let me continue this talk. Well, I look like I'm in the Matrix or Plato's Cave. This is pretty dope. Alright, anyways. So, it's also generally seen a bad thing to be narcissistic in terms of your bodies. Like, you know, to be too much into your body is a morally reprehensible thing, and it's bad because if you're too into your body, you're gonna make others feel bad about their body. Now, I feel like this is kind of a interesting, funny notion, because actually, maybe being into our bodies could be one of the best things that we could do, because if we're into our bodies, it's actually more productive to be in our bodies than to be into like material things, actually. So for example, I like my body, I like the flesh on my body, you know, I like this stuff. I don't actually like to attach too much external things to me. So for example, a lot of people really like watches. I like watch design and stuff like that, but ultimately I don't like to wear a watch because I feel like it just kind of holds me down, and also I feel like watches they're essentially external add-ons, which I don't really like. So you know, all these rappers and people like to wear watches, like, you know, Jay-Z and stuff like that, but, you know, I cannot imagine a Greek god wearing a watch, nor could I imagine Hercules or any of these super duper dudes wearing watches. And so I think most people tend to try to beautify themselves by attaching external paraphernalia to their bodies, whether it be clothes, jewelry, watches, whatever. And to me, I'm like, yo, the ultimate jewelry or the ultimate adornment could just be yourself, your own body, and your own muscles. And the cool thing about, you know, powerlifting, bodybuilding, whatever, it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter your age, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter how rich or poor you are. Everybody has the ability to increase muscle mass and decrease body fat. And, you know, not everyone in the world could afford a Lambo, but everyone can have the biological and physiological ability to create a muscular, beautiful body that you could admire and that's always with you. So once again, let me think about this. If I had the option, so I'm like, you know, 5'10", that's my height. And I think I currently weigh like 175 pounds. So if let's say I had an option, if I could be, you know, retain my same height, be 200 pounds of pure muscle, 10% body fat, you know, deadlift 700 pounds, squat 600 pounds, bench 500 pounds, whatever, and be poor, or if I could be like a trillionaire, but I'll be, you know, super duper fat. Let's say I'm like 300 pounds of fat or whatever, immobile, sick, can't even bench a bar. I would choose to be the poor and strong guy than the weak and rich guy. And it's cool too because your body, it's always with you, which like, I don't think people have figured out how awesome this is. So like, let's say you buy a BMW, right? You buy an M3 or an M2, or let's say you buy a Porsche 911 turbo, or let's say you buy a Lambo or something, right? Buy a Aventador. You could only admire it when it's in your garage, when it's in your driving way, when you're driving it, or when you park it and you go out and look at it, which is, you know, which is fine, right? That's cool. But, yo, your body, your face, you could always love it no matter where you are. Is that like, you know, you're, okay, consider how many mirrors there is, right? You look at yourself like a quadrillion times a day. I think it's better to look at your own reflection, look at your own face and look at your own body and admire yourself than to have some sort of external something that you admire. Because I think modern society is kind of weird because, especially with capitalism and consumerism, we tend to think that objects are better and more beautiful than humans. So for example, a lot of people would rather admire a Rolex watch than somebody who's super duper swole at the gym. Which I think is kind of weird. Like, I'm more like human first. So like the ultimate apex of beauty is humans in the human form, not like cars, airplanes, cameras, devices and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think it's a better thing that I think narcissism is good. Be more into yourself, be more into your thoughts, be more into your body and whatever. And whenever people are like, oh, you're so into yourself, you're so narcissistic, you can just be like, I am. You don't even gotta defend yourself. Don't defend yourself. Just be like, you're so selfish, you're so into yourself, da da da. Just like, yes, I am. And then it's like, and then people can try to make you feel guilty or feel bad about it. So it's like, yo, you know, what about other people? Are you gonna go to hell or da da da? And then, you know, you're such a bad person, and you'd be like, have no sting of conscience, have a good conscience about it. Know that ultimately I think it's actually more honest to be vain and into yourself and narcissistic. Keep building your body, keep making your body and your mind more beautiful, and maybe this could be another step that all of humanity could thrive.